introduction and the platform to share with everyone today. And I will start with, and I'm hoping you're not seeing this little blurb here. Start with what SolarCoin is, basically. Maybe I can hide that, and how it works. Basically, SolarCoin is a renewable energy reward that's given to anyone globally that we can verify has produced 1 megawatt-hour of energy. It's a simple premise. 1 megawatt-hour of energy is verified, and then 1 SolarCoin is distributed. This is based on the blockchain technology, very similar to Bitcoin, with a few important distinctions and differences. Why do we do this? What's our mission? Who are we? I'm the co-founder. I have a founder, and we have a community of about 2,000 people on our Slack, who are a mix of solar energy people and a few crypto people, technologists, and just general. To incentivize the acceleration of the uptake of solar energy. Primarily with the thesis being that solar energy is an excellent climate change mitigator, at least mitigating the impact of CO2 from fossil fuels. Again, the effort is global and designed to last for 40 years. We are about 4.5 plus years in. And basically this little reward token, this SolarCoin, is given to anyone who produces a megawatt hour of energy. And I'll get into what that means in a bit, but you can think about it a little bit just like a cryptocurrency or a token or reward for producing energy. It works a little bit like air miles for producing energy. Engage in activity, you get one of these tokens sent to you. Again, works like an air mile, right? You see the parity, pretty simple story, from energy to 1 SolarCoin. What can you do with them? Well, luckily for the last 3.5 years, or 4 years plus actually, I guess, as an open blockchain protocol, different services, third-party independent services have come online for trading these things. And that might be point-to-point for people trading with each other, or there are exchanges now online where you can trade a SolarCoin into a Bitcoin, into a dollar, a yen, etc. And so effectively there's been a price for these things for quite some time. And we actually are in the process of rolling out some merchant software in the coming months that would allow potentially up to 2.2 million merchants globally, if they wish, to accept SolarCoin. They have shopping cart software. They can accept, if you're a merchant, you could accept Visa, MasterCard, Bitcoin, or you could activate SolarCoin. Functionally, it's a currency. How does it work? Owner of a solar installation produces energy. Step 2, they file a claim, a data claim, either via us or ideally via a monitoring platform where they're already existing on. We get a little bit of data. The end user creates what's called a SolarCoin wallet, send us basically like a bank account and address. We send it on, and then the individual can do whatever they wish with that SolarCoin. That process is getting more automated. We're working with utilities and the world's largest energy monitoring platform to distribute these things so that the end user, maybe a customer with panels on their roof or the owner of a solar farm, receives an email notification in their monitoring software, and along with their monthly production of energy and other dashboard type information is a suggestion that says, hey, if you want, join the SolarCoin reward program, you can get free SolarCoin, and they're distributed for free. I'm going to get out of this for a second. I'll show a brief video that kind of explains things.
Natural resources are currently being lost at an unprecedented rate. As a solution to this, SolarCoin is a global incentive program that provides rewards to producers of solar energy. The SolarCoin Foundation rewards solar energy producers with 1 SolarCoin per 1 megawatt hour produced. This comes in as an extra bonus incentive, free of cost. Any solar power plant may receive digital SolarCoin as a reward for their positive contribution to the environment. SolarCoin is global, decentralized, and independent from any government. SolarCoin is using blockchain technology just like Bitcoin, to create a secure peer-to-peer ledger that allows trading over a global network. Solar coins are held in digital wallets and can be traded from one wallet to another in just minutes. Solar coins represent real value. The network is growing every day and already encompasses thousands of people with a growing daily volume. Solar coins are transparently issued and can be collected, redeemed, or traded for any other currency. To receive solar coins, plant owners need to register their solar system with the SolarCoin Foundation. It's free to register, and once production data is submitted, the foundation issues solar coins to the owners. Solar coins can be issued retroactively for energy produced from January 1st, 2010 up until now. The goal of the SolarCoin Foundation is to issue 98 billion coins over the next 35 years and give solar producers around the world an extra incentive to produce green energy. If you are a solar producer, contact us today, and we will guide you through the process and help you get on the platform. We make it easy for you, and it's completely free.
That video was actually an interesting example of our community at work. That video is produced by one of our affiliates, a company named SolarLux. Let me just go back to present mode. SolarLux, and they created it, and so we can display it. That's a summary. One of the fundamental questions people ask is, why does SolarCoin worth something? I won't go deeply down the rabbit hole on that, but there's an interesting conundrum in traditional economics in that traditional economics really doesn't have an answer for why currency has value. And what I mean by that is, the value theories for debt and equity are pretty well established in terms of discounted cash flows, uncertainties, etc. Economics has a few simple rules for currency: unit of account, medium exchange, etc. These are about 140 years old, and they're actually pretty much pointless in explaining how currency functions. We're evolving and writing a paper, myself and a colleague from Columbia University, Paul Johnson, a paper that explains currency as a network protocol of phenomena, and that it's a protocol for value. Part of that research, we've researched 50 fiat currencies, gold, Bitcoin, and SolarCoin networks to assess their size, their capability, and come up with some interesting phenomena that indicate that the utilization of a currency across people ends up having an interesting emergent phenomena. People use currency to solve the problem of trade. Currency is effectively an information placeholder. And that placeholder ends up having roughly similar values for multiple all cultures. And so we see that basically currency acts, or currency protocols act, as a positive economic externality that typically ranges from $1 to $4,000 or $1 to $5,000 per participant. And this is a little indication of some of the figures and factors that we've calculated. So we're working on a full paper for that. There'll probably be a lot of questions around that, but it's a whole talk in its own right. What does a currency do? Basically, a currency is, it facilitates trade. Without currency, you really don't have trade. Barter is a myth. Barter is the coincidence of wants. And if you really want to kill a country, kill its currency. This happens quite frequently, right? Venezuela right now has its challenges. Turkey's on the doorstep. The average currency only lasts 27 years. These protocols are finite. The oldest protocol out there is the British pound. It's about 324 years old. The US dollar is only, if we issue, let's say from 1913, the central bank issue dollar, really as a protocol, is about just over 100 years old. And obviously it's had a few upgrades, the loss of the gold standard, or the gold redemption feature option, etc. Who's involved in this project? Right now, the picture you see on the left is one of the world's largest solar energy generating facilities. One of the groups who joined us just recently is a company called Aqua Power. Now, in the US and Europe, you may not know that group, but they are, in the power industry, the cheapest producer of solar energy globally. They are a $30 billion company operating across 15 countries. They put anywhere from $8 to $10 billion a year in capex to work building new facilities. About 70% of those facilities are solar. They're named Aqua, A-C-W-A, because most of it's desalination in the Gulf. They're the largest electricity generator in the Gulf. I had meetings with the CEO yesterday, and he was quite happy with how the program was working. On the other side, SolarCoin is a global initiative, as I mentioned. One of the partners we just signed up at Intersolar Europe in June of this year in Munich is SMA. SMA is an inverter manufacturer. And inverters, for those who don't know this aspect of the energy industry, everything's getting digital very rapidly for a whole host of reasons, for management, tracking, etc., finance. And SMA has the world's largest digital tracking platform of energy. They track 25 gigawatts of energy, which is roughly 4 to 5% of the global solar energy production across 300,000 installations. SMA allows us, and they're going to put us on their portal, their monitoring portal, introduce us to those facilities. And so we will potentially be one click away from distributing a token or renewable energy reward to potentially 5 to 6% of global solar energy production. Our target with some of our business partners is to be in front of 10% of global solar energy production, which would roughly be about 45 to 46 gigawatts within the year. And thereafter, 25 to 35% of global solar energy within the next 2 to 3 years, with some meaningful number of people exposed converting. Our next project is to work with utilities and utility platforms and programs. So if a utility has X 100,000 or X million of customers, some percentage of those may have panels, and that utility may be monitoring or tracking them. The utility effectively treats SolarCoin as a reward program. It's a free reward program, and it gives them the opportunity to basically signal, hey, here's something good in the bill this month, as opposed to just the bill. And we found many utilities are about as popular as the cable companies and banks in terms of customer service. And so they're looking for a good message to distribute. So we partner with them. SolarCoin to them is merely a feature on the platform. To sum this up, we're looking at some massive growth with our partners. We are looking for utility partners. Another interesting thing that one can do with SolarCoin is donate them. So we've talked to large corporates, and sometimes the CFO of a corporation, they look at the SolarCoin numbers, the cost, the value of the token, and it's a rounding error on a rounding error. Say, well, what do I do with this? This is something I don't want to put in my ERP system. It's not worth it. One of the things they can do is donate to charity. So there are a few recognized charities now that accept SolarCoin, primarily for development in Africa. And we're working with one charity called Solar Heads of State, which actually is involved in putting solar panels on the presidents and prime ministers' homes in different countries as a way of signaling solar energy is an interesting thing in countries. So that's some of the things we've done with SolarCoin. As I mentioned earlier, we are growing fast. You can claim back to 2010. We are currently distributing to 68 countries globally. That leaves roughly 150, to go with some restrictions. So that's it. I will be presenting this this evening in New York, for those of you who may be in New York. SolarCoin also is an open blockchain, open project. So, all transparent, open source. And the blockchain itself, I should mention, is low carbon. Bitcoin is on track to consume $3 to $5 billion this year in resources, and it's carbon, servers, etc. Ethereum, probably about $1 billion. SolarCoin, if scaled to the same size as Bitcoin, roughly a 30 million user network is our estimate, would consume $250,000 to $500,000 per year in resource. That's about 4 orders of magnitude, or 10,000 times less energy. And that is a lot of information. I'll open it up.
Nick, thank you very much. Plenty of questions here.
Okay.
The first one really relates to something you were concluding with, I think, in the talk.
Okay.
And that is, it goes to the underlying value.
Sure.
What creates the underlying value for solar coins? Is it philanthropy, or is it something more utilitarian, like giving access to the market for vendors of solar production?
The answer, not to be too glib, is it works just like currency. And the reason I say it is currency is a poorly understood phenomenon. 99% of economists couldn't answer that question. I know because I listen to them all the time. Yeah, as part of my background, you know, you heard I used to work for Bridgewater, the world's largest and arguably best global macro fund. I'm an ex-quant trader for Forex, blah, blah, blah. I didn't understand currency until 4 years ago, how it worked as a protocol. And so basically, the interesting thing is currency is a value protocol that is a shared belief among a bunch of people that this thing is going to work and be interesting. We use it to solve problems. Now, that's, some could argue that's a tautology and uninteresting. However, that's exactly how every currency works. There is no currency, to my knowledge right now, that has any redemption value other than burning it physically. You know, you can't go back to your central bank and get anything for it. So our research has indicated, I'll give you an example, the high-level analogy for Bitcoin. When we first started this, you know, back then Bitcoin was a micro phenomena, you know, 500 million, whatever dollars. Every Bitcoin that has gone into existence has gone into existence due to proof of work as a reward for computational effort, which frankly, the effort is pretty useless. It doesn't really do anything. Even from a security perspective, it's not that interesting. Right now, that phenomena, that issuance mechanism is circulating $100 billion, $120 billion Bitcoin economy. Our thesis is, wouldn't it be interesting if we issued a currency into circulation, booted up a network of users? Right now, there are about 15 million solar installs out there. If we boot up a network of users, and instead of having $100 billion floating around that went into circulation and is supported by a network of primarily miners and those buying in, was distributed to solar energy producers. And if we had a $100 billion reward for the acceleration of solar energy. At a certain price, SolarCoin becomes interesting as a marginal reward for production, and that price isn't that high from a megawatt hour perspective. $2 or $3 becomes very meaningful. And what I mean by that is, earlier I mentioned Aqua Power. They put a project up, it's going up right now in Saudi, where the bid was $23 a megawatt hour. It's 2.3 cents. Some of the cheapest energy on the world. It was at the time when it was done. And if at $23, that's interesting. So you look at SolarCoin, well, if it's only $2.30 to make the math simple, that would be a 10% incentive. Okay, yeah, whatever, kind of interesting. However, if you realize that those things are financed in a structured way with debt and equity, and you say, well, what if the equity guys have a 10% tranche? And if they're the technical owners and they get the full, so they're going to have a claim on $2.30 of the $23 flow from the sale of electricity. If they get an extra $2.30 for the solar coin, that's profoundly interesting to the IRR. Now, the big caveat is, who the heck knows what the value of the solar coin is out over 20, 30 years of the life of a project. So when we talk to project finance guys or women, we tell them, put 3 line items in your projects for the flows coming out of your systems, right? There's the sale of electricity, which we call the black line. Pretty simple, you sell your electricity to an off-taker. There's the green line, which is any environmental attributes you can sell, carbon, RECs, SRECs in the US, GEOs in Europe, guarantees of origin, and then a gold line, which is a solar coin. And we tell people, you know, put a row in there, stretch it out over the 20, 30 years of your financing, and just assign it at 0. Assign it at 0 because who the heck knows? We can't guarantee anything. But it's an interesting option. And we think that it's a very interesting asymmetric bet to make as a project, given the importance of climate change.
So back to the whole concept. 1973, Richard Nixon unilaterally closed the gold window, and without informing even the allies of the United States, and essentially transitioned the dollar from being a commodity currency, where it was pegged to gold, or backed by gold, to being a fiat currency. So it seems to me that SolarCoin actually is kind of reversing this. It looks more like a commodity currency if, in fact, solar energy is the commodity.
Yeah, I would push back on that. Maybe conflating 2 issues. One is, let's look at what a commodity currency is. And we have a capital model, very simple capital model for any form of capital. And it basically says any form of capital is, has 2 aspects to it. you're either using a form of capital to buy into a network of goods. I'm using a dollar as a token to buy into the network of other people accepting dollars. Or I have a redemption feature, some off-taker who's willing to guarantee something they'll give me for that dollar. And so effectively, the US dollar up to I think it was 71, maybe 72, had an option embedded in it, right? And you can call that commodity back, but it's like, here's your gold option. You got this put, do what you want with it. The problem obviously became twofold. The volatility of the dollar, the looming inflation, meant all of a sudden some people wanted to exercise that put, or even the threat of the put was so great that could have been a self-fulfilling prophecy and a panic. So the put was removed by technically fiat or declaration itself. So that's a put option embedded with a protocol, network protocol. Now, the other issue is circulation. And this is interesting. I had to learn this, playing what I call being a recreational central banker. So my Twitter feed, that's what I am with SolarCoin. Although it's getting more professional as things scale. One of the interesting challenges with a currency is how do you circulate the damn thing? Right? Hey, I've printed up, 1 million banknotes. I printed up whatever. Well, if I give them out to my family, nobody's going to want a Gogerty buck because they'll be like, well, that's kind of everybody in your family has them, and who the heck cares? And you're going to print more. So integrity of issuance and circulation is important. Circulation primarily so that you're not hyperinflating, etc. Now, Bitcoin solved that problem in theory by algorithmically distributing in what was viewed, or issuing, by what was viewed as an equitable means of mining. Now, at the beginning, whoever Satoshi was or is, really didn't think through some of the technical, or maybe, I'm making a guess, didn't think through the technical aspects of mining. The original premise was, I'm going to issue a circulation currency for the people, right? Bitcoin came out of the 2008 crisis, its birth time and period, and it was like, here's money for the people, decentralized, and it'll be distributed equitably, without really thinking through the fact that computational hashing of this work is a commodity function. And like any commodity, it has returns to scale. And so instead of everybody flipping on their computer and everyone waking up and having X pieces of a Bitcoin, rapidly there was a convergence to the largest, fastest miners who could do it cheapest. And the operational scale, or let's say the functionally economic scale, went from the PC literally to the nation state. What I mean by that is you mine early on with a PC, then you needed a GPU, a graphics processing unit, then you needed an ASIC to be effectively competing efficiently. Then you needed a mining farm. And now there are, Russia's made a policy, or hinted at one, where they were friendly to mining, right? So it's all about cheap hydro or cheap resources to energy. Now that concentration, if you will, that $100 billion, $120 billion system is maintained effectively by, it's controlled effectively by 8 to 10 mining farms that have 80% of that power. Let me go back to your question, circulation. So what we did at SolarCoin was we said, all right, well, one of the challenges of the currency, how do you issue it into circulation? And so the thinking was, we got currency is this wild thing. It's a positive economic externality. The more people who agree or use this thing, the more value it has. That's the thesis put forward that you see right in front of you. And these numbers are out of date. They need to be updated, but generally the premise is true. And so the thinking was, well, let's use a positive externality to create something else we think is positive. And we thought renewable energy was positive. It's easy to issue into circulation because the mechanism is kind of a universal standard. A megawatt hour is a megawatt hour. And then we'll distribute it strictly to solar, not wind and other sources, because it is the most democratic form of renewable energy. Anybody can go out and put panels on their roof. And so I'll go back to your original premise of the question. Is it a commodity currency? No. And if you label a commodity currency a currency that has some redemption feature or optionality back into a currency, then we aren't, because there's no redemption. However, we use the creation of solar energy, this proof of energy generation versus proof of work, as a means of issuing the currency into circulation at what I'll call a known mechanism. So if I'm going to buy into a currency, I'm buying into two things. One, who else is accepting? Is there some utility function out there? Two, who's printing this stuff? How much can I anticipate in the future? These are the supply and the demand factors. And we said, well, the demand factor we think is the network. We think that's going to scale with the consumers. And the supply factors say, if you buy into this currency, you're basically saying, I accept this mechanism for issuance. And so what we do is there's a giant pool pre-mined currency that sits in visible wallets. Everyone can see them on the blockchain. And every time we get information that energy has been verifiably produced, which we don't need a lot of data, a couple data points a year, we issue a token into circulation to that party, and there's a little message appended. Literally be like if every dollar bill had a note on it, this went to John Smith for good deeds, right? That's kind of what we do.
Okay, so just quickly, if I'm understanding, does this mean that SolarCoin is somewhat insulated from economic disturbances such as that would be associated with, let's say, nation states like trade wars, regulatory changes or changes in tax policy and so forth?
Yeah, I mean, every one of us lives in our economic bubble. The term we use is a transactome. And what I mean by that is we live in the dollar bubble. And we're pretty darn lucky, right? Because it's this dominant thing, 60% of all global trade, blah, blah, blah. If you live in the Turkish lira bubble, or you live in the Bolivar bubble, all of your world is Venezuelan bolivars. Your perception, your window is, first, there are no goods available for transacting. Secondly, every other currency or protocol is going up, right? Even SolarCoin or Bitcoin with its volatility looks like it's going up, gold, etc. So the desire is I want to grab things going up, right? Or at least which appear to be somehow stable in a personal purchasing power parity perspective. SolarCoin has the same thing where it's its own protocol. It's extremely volatile because it's such a small network right now.
Okay.
The thesis is if we hold the network theory to be true for the demand function of a currency, no one ever talks about demand. Everyone talks about supply, right? Supply is easy to talk about. Hyperinflation kills the currency, blah, blah, blah. Demand is the size of the network. Now, for most currencies, demand is fairly static in terms of it's either at the bounds of the nation state or a function of the trade or GDP of that nation state. We're going to have a very dynamic network for quite some time.
Just in one word, are there any plans on your part to expand this to other forms of renewable energy like wind or hydro or whatever?
Not at this point. We're very focused on solar.
Okay.
No.
Nick, thank you so much. This is quite interesting, and I know there are other questions. We have recorded this session and we'll archive it for you and for others who may be interested to visit the Forum2100 website. That's www.forum2100.org.
Okay.
Our next session will take place on Tuesday, the 6th of November at the same time, 11:30 a.m. New York time. Our guests will be the senior management team of Purify Fuel, John Carroll, the CEO, and Steve Hughes, the CFO. Please visit our website to learn about them. This is a fascinating company doing really interesting work in reducing carbon and much more, and doing it all by improving the performance of conventional fuels. So please join us then and spread the word. Until then, we wish you all well, and bye for now.
Thank you, David.
Thank you. Okay, follow-up question for you. Is SolarCoin currently applicable for any country, or are there certain limitations that would exist in certain countries that prevent successful use, particularly because insulation is not distributed uniformly around the globe?
Yeah, and that's an interesting one, right? It's from an economic incentive and all the rest, there are two parts to your question I'll answer. First of all, SolarCoin is open globally to anyone, subject to these restrictions. And because we're operating out of the US, we have OFAC restrictions, so the Office of Foreign Asset Control, North Korea, Iran, blah, 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 other various named actors can't go there. Secondly, we do full KYC AML on people, so we're only going to deal with good actors. It's given as a conditional grant. That's kind of the summary there. Your second question about the nature of incentive and insulation, which is obviously at higher latitudes, significantly less. Yeah, effectively, those at the equator have have an energy advantage right now. We don't have any biases one way or the other at this point. We're just trying to keep it as simple as possible. That being said, the program does have one bias, which is how's it funded from a cash flow perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And so for large operators, anyone over, effectively, I think it's a 20 kilowatt threshold, which is pretty much anyone over residence, there is a 10% SolarCoin fee, which is removed from the issuance. We call it the network development fee, which is then retained and used to develop the network. And so right now, we pay our software engineers and our team and some people who go to conferences all in SolarCoin. And so the network development fee is a form of, I guess we can almost say a form of progressive taxation.
Mm-hmm.
The other thinking or thought that we have on, let's say, distributing to those less fortunate, either from a solar perspective or economic, governments. Governments can claim SolarCoin. Governments own administration, university, prison, military bases, etc. And, they can claim those SolarCoin. They're not huge in the budget of a government. They're a rounding error on a rounding error. Our suggestion is take this aggregate pool, and then redistribute it as a free incentive to either rural or smallholders. Right? Go do something good with it. Currency is, or at least SolarCoin, as the quote goes, it's a little like horse manure. It works a lot better if you spread it around. A big pile sitting there getting dumped isn't going to help anybody's world.
Well, in that respect, that raises the question, goes back to the role of the nation state, I suppose.
Yeah.
Are you in any way vulnerable to competition from states?
Yeah, I mean, potentially. And in a way, we kind of welcome it. I mean, if we look at the high level goal of let's incentivize solar energy, if someone wants to put another layer on top of X with an incentive, which is the SREC, or, in theory, an SREC or something else is already there. Yeah, I'm talking to an environment minister who's here for the UN General Assembly Week on Thursday about this thing in a very sunny climate. And, happy to talk to them about claiming the SolarCoin, or, how they think the program could work.
Yeah.
And if they want to be the aggregator of the data, send it to us, and then we grant the coins and they do the distribution for the assets they own. Cool.
Right.
Free program.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it, Nick. This has been